let's read a few other verses that show how important it is when we fear God to obey Him and do His will. Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 29. Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 29. Notice how God opens up His heart to Israel. He says, "Oh, that they had such a heart in them, that they would fear me." Now notice, what does fear lead to? That they would fear me and what? And always keep my commandments. All my commandments. That it might be well with them and with their children forever. What does it mean to fear God? It means always to keep what? All of God's commandments, according to this passage. Notice Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse 6, and I'm reading so many of these, so you don't think that I'm just picking and choosing a verse here or a verse there. In Scripture, the main connotation of the fear of the Lord or fearing God has to do with keeping God's commandments, departing from evil, doing good, loving our neighbor. In other words, it's related very closely with God's holy law. Notice Deuteronomy 8 and verse 6. "Therefore, you shall keep the commandments of the Lord your God, to walk in His ways and to what? And to fear Him." Notice once again the idea that the commandments are linked with fearing God. Notice Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verses 12 and 13. Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verses 12 and 13. "And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you? But to fear the Lord your God." Now notice all the synonyms. To fear the Lord your God. To walk in all His ways. And to love Him. To serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. And to keep the commandments of the Lord and His statutes, which I command you today for your good. Let me ask you, does fearing God have anything to do with our own practical walk, everyday walk? Yes or no? It most certainly does. Because fearing God is explained here as walking with Him, loving Him, serving Him, and keeping His what? And keeping His commandments. Notice Psalm 103, 17 and 18. And by the way, I'm reading many of these texts, but there are many more that I could have included, but there's just too many pages. Notice Psalm 103, verses 17 and 18. "But the mercy of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting on those who fear Him, and His righteousness to children's children, to such as keep His covenant, and those who remember His commandments to what? To do them." Let me ask you, those individuals who fear God, do they keep the commandments of God? Absolutely. I want you to notice 1 Samuel 12. 1 Samuel 12, and we're going to read verses 14 and 15, and then we're going to jump down to verse 24. I thought about reading the whole passage, but it's too long. You can read it at your leisure. 1 Samuel 12, 14 and 15, and then we'll read verse 24. God is speaking here to the kings of Israel. "If you fear the Lord and serve Him and obey His voice, and do not rebel against the commandment of the Lord." Do you see everything that has to do with the fear of God here? It says, if you fear the Lord, serve Him, obey His voice, do not rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then both you and the king who reigns over you will continue following the Lord your God. However,